Robin Tauck, and welcome to my series of conversations with travel leaders as travel reemerges and we build forward better. And in my role as the chairman of Tourism Cares, I feel it's important to talk to travel leaders, to convene and hear new perspectives. Tourism Cares is the #1 nonprofit in our industry focused on sustainability and bringing together this great industry to provide measurable impacts on social and environmental change and action. And this is a historically important and unique time in the history of our industry. Our world needs travel and tourism. For back in 2019, we represented 1 in 10 jobs in the world and nearly 10.9% of global GDP. Our travel promotes, of course, cross-cultural understanding, respect, and opportunity for people and places everywhere. And travel and tourism needs our world. We need to come together and unite again and to provide true care for the people and places and destinations that we visit, the families, communities, and local businesses that we work together with around the world. This series is a quest to bring together leaders to hear their perspectives today on what will be a new and different industry. And I'm delighted today to have a conversation with the president and CEO of CLIA, Kelly Craighead. Kelly has been an absolute champion during these challenging months since March of 2020. She's been on the front line of the cruise industry during this pandemic and has a unique perspective. And of course, cruising has risen from a segment of concern to one of confidence and creativity. So Kelly, welcome to this conversation.
Let me just say thank you, Robin. I can't think of a better person to lead a series like this. And I can't think of a time in the last, 30 years that I've been engaged in tourism that there's been a better time to have a series like this. So I appreciate the opportunity. Cruise Lines International Association is the global voice of the travel, of the cruise industry. So it's the wider cruise industry. Our name is a little bit misleading because we also represent an incredibly robust travel agent and agency community with tens of thousands of members. In fact, I think it's the largest network of travel agents that sell cruise. We have hundreds of suppliers that are supplying our ocean cruise lines and our river marketing affiliates. And then, of course, we have the operators themselves. And so it's really a dynamic community that has been called upon through this crisis in ways I think nobody expected. And the ability to actually operate as one industry and to speak with one voice really came to the forefront through this crisis. And I have to say, I'm just so proud of our members and of our consumers. Cruisers love to cruise. And what has really, I think, really propelled people who have been in really incredibly dire circumstances because of the economic fallout that's been related to COVID, much less the real health emergency, has been the fact that cruisers love to cruise and demand is strong. And there's a high degree of confidence, as you said, that cruising has always been at the forefront of health and safety measures. And so now we've just kind of stepped up to continue to lead the way in even more robust protocols. So it's been an incredibly challenging time to be the head of an industry that has, was an early symbol of the pandemic. But I'm really proud of the leadership of all of our communities within our membership that has just really, when there was no way, they found a way. And so we're looking forward to, like everybody else, building forward together.
Wow, thank you very much. And we're very proud of the cruise industry as well. I mean, you have been through tremendous challenges unspoken of in these times, and you've come together. Here we are in the United States, of the U.S. cruise industry, but you're really representing an international cadre of tremendous support and need around the world. So as you think about 2020 and coming into 2021, and we imagine what you and your organization have had to think about, plan together, work together on, I was curious, what were some of the key aspects as you look forward once you are out there again? We're happy to see that. What are some of the key aspects of success with these new protocols or in this new world we're in?
Right. Well, I should just take one baby step back, because what I failed to mention to you is that I came to CLIA after serving as the head of travel and tourism for the U.S. government. And I served at a time in the administration that Ebola was a real factor and a consideration as it related to travel, and crossing borders and what have you. And I think that experience of having worked on the government side of a health crisis in the travel and tourism space just really gave me a vantage point that let me work with our members and partners to really provide the government relations that are important for navigating a crisis like we navigated. So I want to give a huge kind of shout out to the Europeans and the EU and the EU Healthy Gateways that provided the very earliest framework for resumption, that collaborated with the private sector to arrive at a path for resumption. And I say that because I think so much of 21 and what you can expect from cruising in the future was really born of that lesson learned that I learned a long time ago in the United States, which is the importance of public-private collaboration, because each player has a role. The government has a very important role to play in terms of policy development, and the private sector has a very important role to play in the execution and the implementation and the innovation and the entrepreneurialism that they can do uniquely that the governments can't. And so one of the biggest lessons learned was just how important it is to partner with destinations, with authorities across the board. So, of course, we have very strong relationships with tourism ministers. I think now we have strong relationships with health ministers and prime ministers. And one of the silver linings, I think, for all of us in travel and tourism from this crisis has just been that really travel and tourism is in your backyard. It really impacts everybody. And so I think from, a view of looking into governments, I think there is now a deeper understanding that 1 in 10 jobs are a travel and tourism job, or was, and that a big way that economies around the world are going to build back is through a dynamic and vibrant tourism sector. So to answer your more recent question is, what lessons have we learned is just the power of partnership and the power of collaboration and the importance from the cruise industry's perspective to walk in lockstep with our port partners, with our destination partners, with our government partners, and to really continue to advance these relationships that were born out of crisis, but now are really connected because we have worked with experts in medicine and science, and we have all shared that information. And the collaboration just makes partnerships so much more robust. So I think this is not something as a consumer you might necessarily see, but as an advocate for cruise, as an advocate for travel and tourism, which we all should be, you can see that there are these stronger, deeper ties that get out of the silos that sometimes keeps travel and tourism seen as a fun industry as opposed to an important force of as an economic driver and a job creator. So that's a little bit of the silver lining.
That's very true. And I would agree with that. In my 40 plus years in this industry, I don't think we've ever seen the public-private partnership as we are seeing right now with governments and with the importance of health and safety. And I'm heading off to the Galapagos very soon on a cruise, I'm happy to tell you. And how nice to see the cruise industry and the tour industry and the destinations all work to help us understand as travelers what's important for that country or for that region, and to see the industries, the governments, and the travelers working together so that we get the same information, so that we have a sort of seamless journey. And I've got all my tests and vaccinations, and I'm really excited to see the importance of travel and tourism as it emerges in a sensitive and treasured area such as the Galapagos Islands, which I have been to many times before, but of course, never after a pandemic and a shutdown in travel. And just to ask you a little bit about sustainability and the importance of protecting our environment and the people and places. And I read some really interesting news coming out of the cruise industry during the pandemic of the work that has continually been done to improve. We have new ships going around the world, and to work with the travelers, the industry, the partners that you mentioned to build forward better. Would you like to speak a little bit about some of the changes we're seeing?
Yeah, Absolutely. And I almost interrupted you to say you gave me chills when you said you were going to the Galapagos and about the kind of the roles and the responsibility of the visitors to such a sensitive and such a treasured place, because it's such a, one, you're just an extraordinary leader, and you will, always set the bar for excellence. And I know that this experience that you'll have in the Galapagos will be shared widely with many people, because we all have a personal responsibility as visitors of the places that we visit to behave in ways that are not only culturally appropriate, but in a sustainable way. And that's where, I think what people don't understand, at least about the ocean cruising side of the sector, is that it's actually really pretty small. There's about 300 ships in total. And now we have many ships on order, and some of them are some of the most exciting, innovative designs that are built specifically to travel into sensitive places like the Galapagos or like Antarctica, that not only allows for the enhanced health and safety experience that you have on these ships, but are incredibly sensitive to the environment. So although the industry clearly was immersed in the pandemic and working its way back region by region, market by market to restart operations, we never took our eye off our commitment to environmental sustainability. And a lot of that is reflected in the ship build itself, in the practices of the ships themselves. Some of the larger ships that obviously wouldn't be going to the Galapagos have some of the recycling capacity that is far greater than any small city that you would ever see. So, from the practices that are employed as it relates to guest engagement. So you've seen a lot of shifts in how cruise ships use or don't use it, rather, plastics and other things, but also what you don't see, which is just how efficient the ships are and the use of power and how they're reducing their carbon footprint, and how we're joining with the larger maritime sector to really look for ways to decarbonize. And you can look in places like North America where shore power is an important part. So whereas the whole travel and tourism community does rely on a lot of energy sources, the cruise industry is looking to be seen as a responsible leader for travel and tourism and environmental sustainability. The environmental sustainability and destination stewardship are two of just the most important pieces of work. So the fact that you're going to Galapagos, I'm sure you're going in the most magnificent way, and that you will be a responsible visitor that will protect and preserve the sanctity of that place and share it with so many people makes me so excited, because we do have to get the word out that we have our own responsibility for how we behave in the places where we visit. And I'll always follow your lead.
Oh, thank you. Well, that's really nice to hear about what your industry is doing. And I congratulate many of the leaders on your industry for being at the Climate Action Summits in New York City. I know I've seen many of them there. They speak, they have it in their heart to make these changes. And perhaps the silver lining of a pandemic like this does give time for leadership to focus on how we are going to build forward better and what's going to change, and how, I think you mentioned individually, the individual travelers or yourselves as leaders will take a different perspective. And so my next question is maybe a personal one to you. And during this time of COVID-19, while you've been out there working tirelessly in ways you never thought you would before, and with your great background in working with tourism travel for the U.S. government, anything you'd like to share about your own personal responsibility or how you've been able to think about the future in new ways, just as Kelly?
Well, that's a great question. I have two young daughters who love to travel and have been raised traveling, and we were really hunkered down. I have to say, the girls were in remote school, and my husband was working from home, and I was clearly working around the clock. And their love of travel and their connection to travel is one of the things that I thought about personally, is because this has been disruptive, and we have seen, we're not unique. Everybody's dying to get out. They're dying to see friends, see the world. And I'm a true believer that the more we travel, the more it is a tool for peace, and it is how we bring people and places together. And for me, it has just reinforced how important it is for my daughters to really be able to see the world and the places that I've seen and the ways that I've seen them, which really goes back to a message around conservation and just the importance of individual responsibility in your personal life, in your professional life, and how we can really innovate our way kind of into new solutions, because we know that it is a dire time and we don't have all the answers right now. We as the collective, we as any singular industry, but where I'm proud of the cruise industry is our leadership. The leaders of these companies are investing tens of millions of dollars to try and find solutions that are then freely given to other industries to benefit from. And that's where, again, I think as the cruise industry coming out of the pandemic has a chance to reset the narrative that you've seen about cruising, because they really are some of the more efficient users of energy and are seeking in creative ways to find new solutions, including the willingness to support an R&D fund through the International Maritime Organization, because the technologies to do what we all want to do don't exist. They have to be created. They have to be developed. And so they're really putting their money where their mouth is to put forward this proposal as a way to get the solutions that not just the cruise industry needs, but resorts and hotels and airlines and people who use cards and everybody who's trying to get somewhere or be someplace needs this kind of investment in research and development. And so the cruise industry will be happy to lead the way in partnership with IMO as that hopefully moves forward.
Well, thank you. I really enjoyed hearing not only your personal perspective, your commitment, and reinforcing how active the cruise industry is, this very large industry in not just looking at your own sector, but involving all of us. And that's really what Tourism Cares is all about. We're delighted to have a personal conversation with you. And here we are in midsummer, getting ready for a very exciting couple of years ahead where things will be more protective of our environment, more socially aware, and indeed benefiting people, places, and all that we depend on in this great industry. I think you're on your way soon to another industry event, and all great thanks to you for giving us this time today. And thank you on behalf of all our listeners and those in Tourism Cares, and we certainly know how much you care. So
thank you.
Have a great trip, and we'll see you again out in the out on the high seas or out in the industry in a very short time.
Yeah, thank you very much. I loved it, Robin. And I'm always appreciative of sharing a stage with you, but also having the cruise industry connected to the larger travel and tourism industries. And so I hope I will see you at many of these industry events as we all build forward together.
Thank you.